Kenny is one of the most popular characters in the Walking Dead franchise. He has many people that would put him first, second, or third in their favourite character ranking. When I did my Walking Dead top 10 characters, I put him in ninth, and that was seen as controversial at the time. As requested heavily by Kenny's mustache, we are going to be doing a Walking Dead video on Kenny. Is he a saint or is he a sinner? Do the pros outweigh the cons? And we're just going to basically talk about Kenny, and then I'll summarise it at the end and see what I think. So if you're new, please do subscribe to the channel. It's free. It really helps me out. We upload 3 YouTube videos a week and probably 2 YouTube shorts as well. We're really putting in the work on YouTube. We also do 5 streams a week on Twitch. Normally it's 5 streams a week, sometimes 4. But yeah, we do that as well. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. So obviously we're gonna start with a pro. Why would we start with a bad thing about Kenny? He clearly cares about Claire's. He clearly cares about Clementine. You know, obviously when they reunite out of absolutely nowhere in season 2, episode 2, when we all think Kenny's dead, he is so happy to see Clementine is alive and well, finds out obviously Lee isn't there anymore, and they discuss stories of what's happened since they obviously um once they obviously didn't see each other anymore, because obviously a lot has happened in that time, such as obviously Lee died, but obviously Kenny knew his bit. Kenny has a new partner, which is Sarita. He's got new friends such as Walter and Matthew, and Clementine's got new friends such as Luke, Sarah, and Nick. But when we first see Kenny in season 2, he comes across like he's might be a changed guy, a lot more of less temperament, but obviously that is short lived. Um, I do want to obviously mention a lot about season 1 Kenny as well, which we will be doing. We'll not be talking about the season 3 one, except that obviously he had to sacrifice himself. He was not he was after the car crash in that terrible season 3 flashback. He obviously was unable um to survive, so he just made sure that Clementine and AJ could get away, and he always kind of was like that protector for Clementine, and obviously he was the same for AJ as well. However, Kenny was a very stubborn person, and he only wanted things his way. This is how Kenny always was as a character from season 1, episode 1, all the way up to the end of season 2. This was just Kenny all over. Um, he was constantly arguing with people. He was very aggressive. He had a short temper. Um, and if you are in disagreement with Kenny at all in season 1, he will treat Lee like shit. I mean, they literally can have a fight in episode 3 because Kenny won't listen to him that Duck's going to die. He's one of these people where it's like things will be okay even though they're not. He was saying, "Oh, Duck, he'll be fine. Duck will be fine." He got bit. Obviously, in the Walking Dead universe, if you get bit, you don't survive unless you chop off the limb fast enough to stop the infection from spreading. But yeah, this obviously wasn't the case. And then, as you can see, I will play some footage as well, as you just saw. Um, Obviously, Sarita, who's Kenny's wife, kills herself because she doesn't want to kill Duck. And then, yeah, Kenny unfortunately loses both people at the same time. And I do think that has a massive effect on the rest of Kenny in the Walking Dead universe, because the traumatic experience he's just seen will be very, very bad. And then everything that goes wrong for him and the others in the rest of The Walking Dead season 1, such as Lee gets bit, Clementine gets abducted, the boat gets taken by Vernon. Yeah, it's not good. Um, but he's definitely someone that doesn't give up, and once he has an objective, he will go for it, such as getting a boat. whilst they're in Savannah. He managed to finally find one, but obviously it didn't work out the way that he wanted it to. Also, some of the things that he says, such as he basically has like a casual racism joke with Lee, um, in the barn in season 1, episode 2. But this is just kind of Kenny's character ultimately. Um, but he did save Lee's life in episode 1. You've got to remember that. Because Larry knocked him out, and then he was going to get bit by walkers, and Kenny saved him. So Kenny ultimately saved Lee's life, which was absolutely massive. Um, but he is definitely a good person in some ways, Kenny. And I would not say if I didn't like Kenny and he was a bad person, I wouldn't have had him in my top 10. That's for sure. But he obviously urged Lee to let Ben fall to his death, and if Ben survives, he's obviously a bit iffy about it all, even though he ends up sacrificing himself for Ben, so that Ben gets put out of his misery after he gets impaled by the balcony, which was awful. What happened to Ben there? And then obviously he sacrifices himself to save Krista as well, because he obviously makes a mistake and he doesn't want to. He pushes the walkie-talkie out of hand. She can't get back up, and Kenny did the right thing to do that because it wasn't her fault; it was his fault. But we just assume that he dies, and then obviously comes back in season 2, and it's a massive shock and everything like that. But I do think that there's more to talk about Kenny in season 2 than there is in season 1, because I think he has more of an impact in season 2 than he does in season 1. For example, I mean, he kind of has that leadership role in both seasons, season 1 and season 2, but I actually think that he has less of a leadership role in season 1. But again, the arguing with Lily is just like the arguing with Luke in season 2. Um, and obviously he cares, like he says, he wants the best for Clementine and AJ. Like the way he helps deliver Rebecca's baby is really, really good. But he also does blame Clementine for Sarita's death, and he's so nasty to Clementine about this. It's really not nice. Blaming Clementine when it wasn't even her fault. Like she's probably like 11 or 12 in this season as well, and she's getting the blame even though she did nothing wrong. And like I said, he was even more aggressive in season 2, arguing with Luke all the time. He was clearly out of control in season 2, especially after, you could tell he was out of control the way that he killed Carver. And obviously Carver bashed his eye in, but he destroyed his skull like it was nothing ultimately. Um, but he treats baby AJ, like it's his own. Same with Clementine, they're family to him. Um, Obviously when Clementine gets shot by Arvo, he he looks after her with Jane, and then they're trying to still get to Wellington, and then that's when Kane, Kenny and Jane have a massive fight, of course, which then ultimately leads to one of them dying. But like he beats up Arvo when Arvo is harmless. He beats him up. He One of the worst things I think Kenny actually ended up doing was chasing Arvo. Arvo ran off on the ice lake and Kenny chased him. Obviously that made the ice a lot more delicate, and then obviously Luke ended up dying and potentially Bonnie as well. Um, and this all comes potentially from Kenny running across the lake. But I think that he's a great character, and I think he has that realistic element as well to him, of course. And obviously the emotions can run high. He's already lost Sarita and Duck. He's lost Lee, and now he's and lost Walter, and now he's lost Sarita as well. It's not. It's just I can understand like his anger and just how people deal with grief in different ways, but he should never have shouted and blamed Clementine for what happened. But I do think that leadership role that Kenny has is quite an important. Um, but then again, like I said, he's stubborn, so sometimes he will not listen to. He'll not listen to you basically, and I do feel bad for him. I definitely feel bad for him because what he's gone through is bad, but at the same time, you can see that he clearly needs help, but there is no help in an apocalyptic world for what Kenny needs. There is no help. And that's why I don't think that he's as bad as a character as the people that don't like Kenny say. Like some stuff he does, I think in season one, he's a he's a bit. It shows kind of a true reflection on Kenny compared to season two because he's already been through so much and then he goes through even more. He sees his friend die, he sees his partner die. He's already been through enough as it is. But he will always he just wants ultimately he just wants the best for the kids. And it was the same as Duck. I mean, obviously in season two he mentions that he calls Clementine Duck. Obviously, been through a lot as well. So but like I'm gonna show obviously like you can tell when he's starting to lose control because there's a walker and he just absolutely bashes it with a crowbar, just like it's Carver all over again. Um and I think sometimes the aggression just gets the better of him. And obviously in the Walking Dead season two game, obviously there's a lot of dialogue where like everyone else is worried about Kenny, and it's basically like, are you feeling the same way as well? And like Kenny is the person that makes the decisions ultimately, but the way that he died was rubbish. However, the original way Kenny was going to die was that he was going to walk into the lake and kill himself. And do you know what? I think that would have been a perfect ending for him because of all of the issues he's had. He's clearly had so many issues um, that we talk about all the time, of course. Like, he's obviously needs help. And maybe that would have been his way of escaping reality. And I think that would have been a way better ending than him being paralyzed in a car crash and then getting eaten by walkers. But ultimately, they decided not to do that. Um, and yeah, obviously, can't do much about that. But yeah, if I had to like summarize, I think that I think there isn't really any like major cons regarding Kenya, except maybe, I think just the aggression, he's out of control, he's stubborn. Like, there isn't actually like as many. I mean, look, the stuff with Arvo with Kenny was bad. Like, there's no denying that. But like he says there, like a big sister. But Kenny thinks that he knows what to do every single time, when even if he doesn't know, he'll pretend that he does. Um, but he's a protective man, he's a leader. He wants the best for the kids because obviously he's lost his kid, so it feels like he can raise Clementine, he can raise AJ. So that's kind of how um Kenny is ultimately, but obviously there's a lot of times in season two where you can agree with Kenny, you can agree with Luke, because obviously the argument continues a lot in episode 4 and 5. Um, but obviously we have to talk about the season two before we do our proper summary. We have to talk about the season two Kenny versus Jane incident. So obviously, baby AJ we think's dead. Kenny tries to kill Jane because of it. He's out of control. He thinks that Jane's killed the kid. Um, he's absolutely lost the plot, and ultimately he has to make a decision. Sorry, we have to make a decision. Do we let Clementine kill Kenny, or do we let Kenny kill Jane? And obviously, this is for me one of the hardest decisions in the entire franchise. And when I first played The Walking Dead season two, I chose I chose to shoot Kenny. I mean, like Kenny there, Kenny when Clementine tries to get in the middle of Kenny and Jane, he shrugs, he just pushes her out the way. Um, it just gets really heated, and obviously you have to make a decision. Ultimately, I've changed my mind on this decision more than any other decision in the entire game. I've changed my mind so many times on what I think the best option is, but I also think that maybe Kenny Kenny being like put out of his misery, I do think is a good thing for him because he's clearly unstable. And then obviously if you decide to keep Kenny alive, then you go to Wellington and then you can either leave him or not. And obviously, like I said, he has sacrifice and protect his loved ones until the day he dies. Clementine and AJ are Kenny's loved ones, and he does not mind. He just wants the best for them, and ultimately is fine with leaving them in a safe place, and he goes back off. Um, but yeah, I think if I had to summarize Kenny, is he a saint or a sinner? I would say that he's a realistic saint. I would say that. I think he just I think he wasn't a terrible person. He was not a bad person, but in an apocalyptic world, people have to do different things they don't want to do. But what I will say is that I do think that he is a saint. I don't think he's a bad person. If he was a bad person, he would not treat people like Clementine, Sarita, Duck, Catcher, AJ, would not treat them nicely, and obviously he does. Um, so it's obviously not ideal, and the way he acts around people that he doesn't like is scary, especially towards the end of the game, such as Jane, Luke. He's obviously out of control. He's ultimately potentially a maniac that even Clementine might not be able to fix. So to summarize, I would say there might be more cons than pros regarding Kenny, but he was obviously a good person that was in an apocalyptic world. Like that's just normal, of course. Um, but I do think that in the end, I do think that he was a good person. He could have acted better to other people, but obviously emotions, trauma caused this. No one can be perfect in the world regardless. There's no one perfect in the world. Even I'm not perfect. Alright. He has realistic traits, and that's what I like about the Telltale Walking Dead games because there is a lot of realistic things. I mean, look here, obviously, Kenny said that he thought he wanted to die so he could see Catcher and Duck again, and now he's scared. And this is why I think they might have scrapped that ending where he can obviously just walk into the lake in season three in a flashback. But I think they should have kept that. I do really think they should have kept that. Um, but obviously they just decided not to. But obviously with Lee's death in season one, Kenny's death in season two, and obviously Clementine's, we thought she was going to die in season four. I do think, and obviously like David or Gabe's death in season three, I do think that the Walking Dead games have got some good and really sad and emotional death scenes. But I think regardless of how you leave Kenny in season two, he will always be a franchise great. And yeah, look, I have him in ninth. I like Kenny, but I'll be honest, I prefer season two Kenny to season one Kenny. I don't like season one Kenny that much because of the fact that I think he's quite nasty to Lee, unless you agree with him on everything. I mean, he doesn't even. There's potential choices where Kenny doesn't even go with you to save Clementine just because you've disagreed a few times. Um, yeah, so I think he's just a hothead. But look, he's a franchise great. I like him. I mean, he's ninth on my list. If I didn't like him, he wouldn't. I mean, he'd never be my top 10 hated, but I wouldn't have had him in my top 10 if I didn't like him. Like, it's pretty obvious that, isn't it? Anyway, that is going to be the end of this Telltale The Walking Dead video on Kenny. If you guys want to see another video on, we can do a different character, maybe obviously Clementine's probably an easy one for me, maybe Lee. Or if anyone wants like any Life is Strange ones, we can obviously do a long, long video on Max Caulfield or Chloe Price. Um, and obviously we can't do any Lost Record like profile videos until obviously the full games come out, which is in a month. I can't wait for that, by the way. Regarding obviously this, I've recorded this on Wednesday evening. It'll be out Friday, probably now. Obviously, the F1 video coming out on Tuesday instead of Saturday has kind of ruined the schedule a bit. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I don't think I'm going to do 4 videos because I don't want to overdo it. So it'll probably be, this will be out on Friday or Saturday. Depends on how I feel, to be honest. Most likely it'll be Friday though. And then we'll be back with the roundup on Wednesday, which has just come out half an hour ago. Um, yeah, we're going to have another Lost Records video before we do our predictions and theories for season 2. Sorry, tape 2. But I'm going to say, though, the Lost Records videos are doing so well. I think combined they've got 240 views, which is, for 2 videos, is magnificent. So thank you so much. So thanks very much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos such as this. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.